To someone without an eating disorder, hunger is simple. You feel it, you eat, you're satisfied, you stop. But to someone with an eating disorder, hunger feels like the enemy. It brings unknowns and uncertainty. This feeling that once we start eating, we won't be able to stop. Potentially the most dreaded part of eating disorder recovery is extreme hunger, which is what we'll be discussing today. What is extreme hunger? Why does it happen, and how can I cope with it? Please note that this is a highly sensitive topic, and viewers who have or have had a history of restrictive eating disorders are advised to consider whether watching will be helpful for them or a hindrance. Calories will be mentioned throughout. The information shared is for entertainment purposes only, and I am not a medical professional. I am a trained therapist, but not for the treatment of eating disorders. The content I'm sharing is based on my own recovery, other people's experience of extreme hunger, and further research that I've done. If you have been restricting your intake for some time or are clinically underweight, please seek medical guidance before increasing your intake. Refeeding syndrome is rare, affecting less than 1% of people who go into recovery, but it is deadly, so please make sure that you're being monitored medically when you're starting recovery. Extreme hunger is scientifically referred to as post-starvation hyperphagia. It's clinically defined as an increased appetite following a period of starvation. It can happen at any point in recovery. Personally, I had a few days or periods of a few days where I experienced extreme hunger, but I've only just recently started experiencing it more consistently, and I'm over a year into recovery from anorexia and with weight restored myself. Not everybody will experience extreme hunger, and the experience is very individual. For some, it might last the entirety of their recovery, and for others, it might show up and leave quite quickly. It might come up right at the start of recovery or much closer to full restoration. Extreme hunger is a biological response to food deprivation. It serves a purpose, and that purpose is to restore weight and heal internal damage, such as replenishing organ tissue or rebuilding muscle. Your body is trying to play catch up for a period of deprivation, and so it starts to produce an increased amount of ghrelin, the hunger hormone. So what does it feel like? Well, it feels like a black hole in your stomach that you just can't fill. People often describe it as kind of a bottomless pit hunger. And even if you do manage to reach a state of physical satisfaction, you may still feel mentally that you want to eat more. Right, but is this just binging? No, but this is definitely one of the biggest concerns that people have shared with me. This fear of swinging the other way or developing binge eating disorder. I promise you are not. Extreme hunger is an important part of the process of recovering from a restrictive eating disorder. This is an entirely different process from recovering from other types of eating disorders, like binge eating disorder. Biologically, you've restricted. What follows famine? Feast. Okay, let's use an example. Say you've eaten in a deficit of 300 calories every day for a year. That is a deficit of over 100,000 calories. Now think of that like a debt that you need to pay back. Your body wants you to pay that debt back as quickly as possible so it can reach a state of balance. That's extreme hunger. You are not overeating, you're paying back what you owed. But let's really talk about this, because I think even professionals can share these concerns. I've had lots of people share with me that their eating disorder recovery team has told them not to eat over their meal plan, or that by doing that and having something extra, they are binging. That's just incorrect. Binge eating disorder is an entirely separate disorder from anorexia or any other restrictive eating disorder. Extreme hunger is associated with past restriction only past restriction. It's biologically driven, whereas binges are often fueled by emotion or relieving some distress or finding a sense of comfort. Binges are often senseless. You feel completely disconnected and out of control. And yes, sometimes my eating did feel out of control, but I always made that conscious choice to grab another snack. I never felt like I couldn't stop, and I was never doing it in a way to manage my emotions. I was simply responding to my own body's biological hunger signals. Let's talk about the research though. And perhaps the most famous documented case of extreme hunger is the Minnesota starvation study. I'm sure you've probably heard of this study, but if you haven't, I highly recommend reading the whole thing through. But in sum, the Minnesota study of 1945 took 36 healthy, not previously disordered men with no history of psychiatric conditions and put them on a starvation diet of 1,570 calories for a period of 6 months. Okay, consider this. 1,570 calories was a starvation diet. Now, I know some of us would have eaten far less than that whilst we were restricting. Not everyone, and it's okay if that doesn't line up with your experience, but just consider that for a moment. Consider the fact that 1,200 is often commonly cited within diet culture as an okay amount to restrict to. Just madness. Anyway, after this starvation diet, the men were followed through the refeeding process and calories were systematically increased each day for a period of 3 months. The study was designed initially to research the physical and psychological effects of dietary restriction and the effectiveness of nutritional rehabilitation. The study intended to guide assistance provided to famine victims during the Second World War, but its findings have been truly insightful for the recovery from restrictive eating disorders and refeeding during that period as well. The researchers themselves stated no rehabilitation can take place on a diet of 2,000 calories, which is sometimes the amount that people are given on meal plans for anorexia recovery. They said the proper level is more like 4,000 calories daily for several months. Okay, I'm getting sidetracked again. After the study concluded, a subgroup of the men were followed up for a further 6 months. During that time, they were able to do whatever they want and eat whatever they want. And during that time, many of the men ate up to and over 10,000 calories daily for months. They ate and ate and ate, but could not satisfy this hunger. One participant described the endless hunger as a year-long cavity that needed to be filled, and it took those men between 2 months and 2 years to fully restore, despite eating that much. Now, these men were previously healthy, but during the starvation period, they all developed common symptoms of eating disorders, such as a preoccupation with food. Some collected literally hundreds of cookbooks and reported constantly thinking of food. One participant shared, if you went to a movie, you noticed every time they ate and what they ate. They had diminished sexual arousal, all interest in dating was lost, social withdrawal, they all became more introverted, and perceived cognitive decline. Many even dropped out of university. They even developed some of the lesser spoken about eating disorder symptoms, like eating food from the trash and stealing food. They also developed some of the common food rituals seen in people with anorexia, which I won't detail because I think it could be triggering, but I highly recommend reading the full study. Interestingly, many of the participants also developed emotional distress, depression, and one even self-harm during the study. I think this just shows how comorbid mental health conditions can be, and this is in a group of men who previously had no history of such conditions. But what I think is really interesting is that after all of this, after months of eating thousands and thousands and thousands of calories, the men went back to normal, their baseline. They were able to return to a normal life, and after a while their weight went back to pre-study as well. It did take time, but it happened. There may be times that you have to eat past physical hunger cues in order to satisfy that mental urge to eat more food, and that's okay. It can lead to bloating, feeling nauseous, etc. And to manage those feelings, I really recommend taking a rest, taking a lie down, using a hot water bottle, and just making sure that you're eating nutritionally dense foods so that you can eat more, i.e. stop filling up on low calorie snacks, give into that full force hunger and eat what you truly want. Because let's be honest, it is these calorie dense, nutritionally dense foods that you really want to eat, especially early on, and there are a few reasons for that. Firstly, these are often, but not always, the foods that you restricted the most when your eating disorder was active. Therefore, we have put these foods on a pedestal. It's also biological though, right? These foods are high carb, high fat, processed, and are easier for the body to break down. And your body wants a quick source of energy to replenish its stores. Your body does not care for vegetables that it has to exert energy to break down to get the energy from. It wants energy and it wants energy now. So don't bother trying to fill up on low calorie foods, as you will still have that unrelenting mental hunger to eat the other stuff. So just eat it now and save yourself the time. Now, I didn't put this in the video to scare you, but I thought it would be helpful to set realistic expectations. Yes, you will gain weight more quickly if you commit to honouring your extreme hunger. But yes, it does stop. Think back to what we just discussed with the Minnesota starvation study. But at the same time, your recovered body might not look the same as your pre-eating disorder body, because during that time when your eating disorder was active, you have grown, and bodies naturally change over time. And in the future, your body will probably change how it looks again. That's just how it works. As we always say, eating disorders are mental, not physical. There will be a reason that you're experiencing extreme hunger whilst at a healthy BMI. It means you're still in an energy deficit. You don't need to be clinically underweight to have restricted in the past, and therefore you don't need to be clinically underweight to have accrued this energy debt. There may also be other things that your body is trying to heal. For example, healing your bone density, or if you're somebody who menstruates, then getting your period back. You need to honour this hunger regardless of your BMI. Sometimes when working with a professional team in recovery, you might be given a meal plan, and at times this can be really helpful, but other times it can be a bit of a hindrance, especially when you eat your meal plan and you're still hungry. Then what? What do you do? Well, hunger is your body communicating that it needs more food. No nutritionist or dietitian can override your body's biological instincts. If you eat what's on your meal plan and you're still hungry, you should eat more. Obviously, everything I just said is nice in theory, but harder to actually achieve and action, especially when confounded by an overwhelming sense of guilt for just listening to your body. I think recovery would be a hell of a lot easier if eating didn't result in this huge amount of shame or guilt. But feeling guilty when honouring extreme hunger is a really common response. It's one of the topics that you guys really wanted me to talk about during this video. Well, guilt itself is an emotion, and we know that emotions aren't permanent. They change like the weather. So at the end of the day, it's a waiting game. We sit and we wait for the guilt to pass, because we know that it will. Sitting with guilt is really quite uncomfortable though, so using distractions to wait for it to pass, like playing a game or watching YouTube, doing some colouring, listening to a podcast, anything like that to keep your mind away from eating disorder thoughts. I like to talk to David about what's happening, or watch my own favourite recovery YouTubers like Tabitha or Ro. You may find that other people comment on your eating or how much you're eating, or at least this potential situation provokes some fear or anxiety for you. What if someone says I'm eating too much? Okay, so what? You can't expect to eat like a normal, non-disordered person in recovery, because you are not a normal person. You are recovering from a restrictive eating disorder. Your body is expending more energy than other people's to heal damage, and therefore you likely will have different nutritional needs to the people around you. So perhaps this is the section you've been waiting for, or you skip straight here. We've talked a lot about what extreme hunger is, how it might be experienced, and the things that come with it. But how do we actually manage or even accept our extreme hunger? Well, I think accept is the key word. The first thing to consider is that ignoring your extreme hunger will not make it go away. If you ignore your extreme hunger, you will be constantly living as if there is a hole in your stomach, thinking of food 24/7. And to me, that is not a life that I want to live. The only way out of extreme hunger is through. You have to accept that you're experiencing it in order to take the necessary steps to honour it. And to be honest, you won't be able to ignore it. It's physically painful. It's a bottomless pit feeling. It likely will scare you to feel this way, and that's okay. That's normal. It means that the extreme hunger is serving its purpose. Your body is just trying to survive, and it's trying to force you to eat in order to do so. My best advice for managing extreme hunger is to not compensate around it. I know that is so hard, but if you compensate, you're just dragging the process out. If you restrict the next day or you over-exercise, you are showing your body that food is still scarce. that you are still in danger, and therefore you'll just enter a cycle of restriction, extreme hunger, restriction through compensation, extreme hunger, restriction, etc. Your body is scared that you're going to do this. It's scared that you're going to take away food again, scared that you're going to remove its main energy source. You need to do the opposite. Show your body that food is abundant and it's safe now. Do this by honouring the hunger completely, both physical and mental. And even if you wake up tomorrow and you're not feeling the extreme hunger, you need to continue to eat regularly and adequately to not enter that cycle. I also recommend removing any potential triggers. For example, unfollow any accounts that you do find triggering. Delete old body checks from your phone. Throw out any scales or food scales or old clothes. Take that preventative action now. Future you will be so thankful. We already discussed guilt a little bit, but guilt is just one emotion that you might experience during this time. You might also feel scared, upset, anxious, or even angry. It's really important to find a healthy way to manage these emotions. That might be journaling, talking to someone, using the Beat helpline, meditating, listening to podcasts, reading, or even taking a nap. Managing other people's comments can also be tricky, so it might be helpful to explain to your close family and friends what's happening so that they can be aware and help support you. It might be helpful to even explain what extreme hunger is, because I think most non-disorder people have simply no idea. One final topic that I was asked to talk about quite a lot is how to honour extreme hunger whilst experiencing financial pressure, or what to do if you simply cannot afford to honour that hunger. And I think this is especially key right now with the energy bill crisis happening in the UK. So if you're struggling with your finances through recovery, just know that you're not alone. I had this question a lot. My advice would only be to do things that you're probably already doing, like buying in bulk and making food at home. For example, you might be really craving a pizza, so you could decide whether to order the Domino's or to make the pizza at home. You just have to be extra careful here, because money spent on food is not money wasted. Food is an essential. Don't let your eating disorder use this as an excuse to restrict you from what you truly want. For most non-disorder people, food is going to be one of their biggest expenses. And I think when we're restricting, we kind of forget or lose sight of that. But actually, food is a big expense and it is essential. So don't feel guilty for spending your hard-earned money on food. It's a biological necessity. To conclude, I'll just leave you with one simple question. Do you really want to spend the rest of your life chronically hungry and obsessing over food? Or would you rather push through short-term discomfort in order to fully recover and feel free from the mental barrage of food-related thoughts? So I hope this video was helpful for some of you out there who might currently be experiencing extreme hunger, or who might be scared to experience extreme hunger later on down the line. It's a really common part of recovery for most people. It's one of the topics I get most asked to talk about on my channel, and I'm happy to do more of these kind of sit down in-depth videos. If there's any other topics that you guys want me to talk about, just let me know in the comments down below and I'll be sure to take that feedback on board. Otherwise, I hope you're all well. Whilst you're watching this, I might be enjoying myself on a little mini break in Bristol. I'm not sure, guess we'll see. But yeah, this was nice to film, fun to research, and helpful for me as well. So as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and I'll see you next time. Bye!